Hey everyone, we are live at MKM Cultural Arts Center, the Heartfelt Education through the Arts. Jessica here, Los Angeles Post Sighting. We're celebrating Always Running 30th anniversary. And right now, Juan Flautista is on stage making some amazing music, Latin jazz. So I'm going to take you over there and we're going to be live streaming. I hope you all enjoying and let us know how you feel about the show. And we can't wait to do this all over again. It's going to be incredible. All right, so let me take you to where the action is. Yeah, you're gonna go on a little journey with me, folks. Here we go, behind the scenes at MKM. Look at all this beautiful art. We got Martin here, the director. What's up, director? Oh yeah, such an awesome collaboration. Beautiful spot here in North Hollywood. All right, so I got you. We're gonna go to the action. Orale, let's hear it again for Juan Flautista. And you can follow them on all the socials, the Juan Flautista. They also have a website, juanflautista.com. Definitely check them out, book them, get them for your private events, any events you're holding, and tap them into your network too. And let's, like again, we support each other. So that's what it's about. That was fantastic. All right, everyone, you ready to keep this party going? And we're gonna kick it off with the gentleman of the day. That's Luis J. Rodriguez. And yes. And I just want to say too that as a teacher, educator, I got to teach K through 12 more recently in Panorama City. I taught high school English to 9th and 10th graders. And Luis and Amiro both visited my class and we're a part of that through Zoom and this, they were present. But I wanted to say that I love Always Running. It is not a banned book in my classroom. I teach that book. I do. I share it with them because I believe 14-year-olds, 13-year-olds, they're seeing all kinds of stuff we don't even want to think, but they know, y'all. So sharing truth and letting them read the book as it is, unfiltered, raw, it is important because in those pages, they see themselves, they see their uncles, they see their family, they see someone that grew up in a way that they're growing up, but that triumphs. And that is important. They got to see that there's light on the other side, that there's something different beyond the barrio, beyond the block. And that's so important. And one of my favorite pieces we're going to see in the play later is all about that. Just open your eyes that there's more. This world is huge and it's all of ours. We all have a part to play. And the message in Always Running tells us that. And so many of my students love reading that book. And they're like, Miss, you're going to let us read this part? I'm like, I don't even want to know what you see on your computers. You can handle this. It's just one sentence. Let's keep going, That's not the point, The point is the change, the transformation, rising up and going through struggle, because we do. And it looks different for all of us. But I just wanted to say my own testimony that, I stand behind this libro and I've seen its power. And, I'm all about it. Banned books, the reason that they get banned is because they're true. They're true and people are afraid. And the artists have power, y'all. Y'all have power. And those people trying to control us are afraid of that. But keep telling your story. And I want to bring up Luis J. Rodriguez to the mic.
There's a lot of love, and I have to thank you all. You can imagine that I never imagined that book would be around for 30 years. I never imagined that we would celebrate it the way we do. It's just beautiful, blessings on top of blessings. And it's important to know that we have that. I do want to say a few things before I just want to read a couple of poems, but the things I want to say have to do with the fact that we got to stop, as Jessica mentioned, the book bannings. The reason we created a bookstore in Sylmar is because for 500,000 people in the Northeast Valley, there was no bookstore, no art gallery. 500,000 people. You can get guns, drugs, alcohol, anywhere. Can't buy a book. And that's by design, people. They don't want our neighborhoods to have books because books open the door, not just to knowledge, but imagination. And that's why we have a bookstore, and that's why we have here the Achuchas, and that's why we're celebrating. So always winning is my armed struggle against injustice. Only my arms are not guns. They're not knives. They're words, and they're very important words, and we all need to use that arm. I want to start with something I just recently wrote, because I don't want to read old stuff right now. I want to read some stuff that I haven't read before. Let's see if I can find it. This I wrote is an essay I wrote for that book that we were talking about earlier. They're going to have this Luis J. Rodriguez reader published in England with academics and others writing about my work, and they actually do 2-3 essays in there. I'm totally amazed by that, you know. But I'm just going to read it. It's by development as a revolutionary thinker, organizer, and creator. And I'm only going to read the first part. That's really long, but just the first part. Whack. It's hard to describe what a hand sounds like as it strikes your cheek, especially at 6 years old. I don't really remember the sound. I'm coming up with whack, but I can't say that comes close. Maybe that's how a comic book represents this. I do remember the red bursting asunder like a firecracker, spraying away all other colors. I remember the jagged lines in the fitted air as I opened my eyes. I remember the pain. A racist white teacher struck me in front of a kindergarten class where my sister Anna, a year younger than me, sat quietly in a corner. Like me, she couldn't speak English. Although our family had moved to Los Angeles from Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, when I was 2 and Anna was 1, my parents only spoke Spanish at home. I was in 1st grade, and I had come to Anna's class to pick her up so we could walk home together. But when asked by the teacher why I was there, I could only answer in Spanish. Whack. She smacked me across the face for speaking Spanish. The drama had started on my first day of school. I was taken from classroom to classroom where teachers waved me away because they didn't want another non-English speaking child. The school was in Watts, mostly Black, but Spanish-speaking Mexican kids had started enrolling more frequently. There was already a large and old Mexican section of Watts on the other side of Central Avenue called La Colonia. We seemed to be crossing another border. The school put my brother Jose, 3 years older than me, into a classroom with mentally disabled students, which set him back 2 years. Finally, on that first day, a Black teacher, Miss Jones, begrudgingly told the school aide to leave me with her. Miss Jones placed me in a corner and surrounded me with building blocks. I pretty much stayed in that corner that entire year. I had to go to the entire year. Miss Jones was okay. But once I peed in my pants when I didn't know the words to say, I had to go to the bathroom. I recall the clamor of PU and the laughter from the other kids, and Miss Jones livid at what I had done. But that slap. Speaking Spanish required corporal punishment. On another occasion, while having fun in the playground, I carelessly uttered a Spanish word. A teacher took me by the arm to the office where the principal paddled my behind. From then on, I kept my mouth shut till around 9 years old when English became my dominant language. I didn't know it then, but I was at war with a whole social system that took a certain shape in schools. Those experiences taught me about the Watts version of the US education system, where for Black and brown people, segregated schools prevailed, redlining among realtors and banks ran rampant, and schools hardly had books, papers, or pencils. But if anything began my turn to revolutionary ideas and passions in my later years, it was that slap. I've I know people know my history without brief, because it's an always running, but also in my other sequel of the book, I Calls You Back. And I recommend you read I Calls You Back, because I think it's probably more important than Always Running, honestly. I had a hard time in school, I had a hard time at home. And so real early on, I joined a gang. I was 11 years old. And people say, well, why would you do that? And I always say there must have been something empty that I was trying to fill. Must have been something. I don't want to blame my parents. They're both hardworking people. They were good people, but they weren't home. We were latchkey kids, as you know what that is. And one of us was going to fall through the cracks, and happened to be me. At 12 years old, I started doing all the drugs that were there, including heroin. At 13, I was getting arrested for stealing, fighting, disturbing the peace. It got to the point where at 16, I was in murder's row. They were trying to get me for 3 murders, falsely accused for 3 murders I didn't do, but it didn't matter. They had me in murder's row, had a cell next to Charles Manson. I somehow got through all that. And then a year later, I'm arrested for attempted murder, in which 4 people were shot. I actually shot somebody. I don't mind admitting it, but what happened is my homeboy scared all the witnesses. So when I went to the hearing, there was nobody that could point to me. I thought I could do anything, but everything catches up to you. And by the time I was 18, I was hooked on heroin, which I didn't think I was going to be. Because one thing that sometimes happens when you're an addict, you think, I'm not going to be like the Tecato in the corner, that junkie. I'm not going to be like that guy. But then pretty soon, you're just like them. You didn't even know you were being there. And I also knew that I didn't have anything else to do or hang on to. I was homeless for 3 years. My family threw me out of the house. So for 3 years, I was in the street. And if anybody knows street life, even now, it's very much like these encampments. The sad thing is that encampments are everywhere. We had encampments, but it wasn't for everybody. And it wasn't everywhere. Now they're everywhere. The sad thing about it is that drugs and alcohol and violence has expanded. When I was doing it, it was hardcore, but it wasn't everyone. You know what I'm saying? Now everybody is involved. Last November, a grandson of mine, Joshua Taifa, died of fentanyl poisoning. He was 22 years old. And so it affects my family. His sister, my granddaughter, a daughter of my son, Ramiro, was in prison at the time for crystal meth and other drugs. It's sad when the generations keep doing this thing. And I will have to add one thing. Those kids did not get raised up in the hood, in the Vider. They were sheltered. And they still got caught up in it. You know what I'm saying? It still reached out to me. So I carry Joshua's memory with me and fight for having us be strong in the struggle, having us be strong for what we have to do, having us be strong to fight for our books and our art and the beauty we can make in the world. And that's why I want to say before I read this last poem, because I do tell people there's medicine we got to bring to this world that's kind of sick. And it's not the medicine that's in your medicine cabinet. It's the medicine that's inside of you. What we bring out actually helps heal. And this is why I say the biggest, most important thing we need to do is bring more beauty in the world. More art, dance, theater, writing, bring more music, bring it, and to bring more blessings. Let's bless the world, not curse it, not keep hurting others, not keep blaming everybody. Let's just help bring up our young people. I'm not about scared straight, I'm about cared straight. And that's what we need to do, is care for each other. This poem is kind of long, but I think it's important. And it's written for my son, Ramiro. And I don't mind because Ramiro has been so important in this work. And you know, he's busy, he's helping. And Ramiro's got a lot of great spirit, and they get the positivity he brings to things. He now works to bringing art and even songs and indigenous songs to probation camp kids, to high school kids. He's helping people. He's already a grandfather, as you know, because I actually have 7 great grandkids. Yeah, so it's good. He was in a gang. He was in the drugs. And it's sad to see my grandkids fall into it, but I kind of started with him not wanting him to be in it. When he was born, I was 20 years old. He saved my life. Holding Ramiro in my arms changed me. It doesn't always change people. I know William knows it changes you. And we can be hardcore knuckleheads, and sometimes a baby in your arm just completely melts you down. Having him and his sister, my daughter, Andrea, changed my life. I never could return back to heroin. I never could go back to crime, and I never could go back to being in La Vida Loca, the violence. But unfortunately, years later, I moved to Chicago. He ends up coming with me, and then he joins a gang in Chicago. That's something you don't want. And the issues that he had, you can read it and it calls you back. Some of them had to do with me, abandoning him and not being there for him and his sister. And I have to cop to that. That's just the way things go. Me and his mom broke up when only at 3.5 years, and I had a hard time being with my kids. It's easy for men to walk away from their kids. And that's not right. And I did that. And then he comes to me hurting and upset. And I tried to be a dad to him, but it was a little bit too late. He joined the gang, and then he got involved in violence and got into prison. He ended up doing the longest, was a 13.5-year stretch for attempted murder. And it's sad. I remember when we were there for his sentencing, he actually got 28 years. And the only reason he got able to do half that time, actually less half that time, is because that law in the state of Illinois was declared unconstitutional. The truth in sentencing, you got to do almost 100% of your time. Declared unconstitutional just briefly, and he got in on that. And then they redid the laws, and now people got to do 85 to 100% of the time. But he went through it, and he could get out in half the time with good time. That's what he did. I wrote this poem for him after he got out of prison, and it's called The Wanted Life. And I'll share it with you. And it's for my son, and after he did the prison time. He's been out since 2010. 13 years he's been out, and I know it's hard. Re-entry is hard. It's hard for him, but he's here, and he did it. He made it happen. So, the long fingers of a wanton life, from the ends of a twisted highway, pull at us with the perfume of the streets and its myriad romances, all intoxicating, gripping at our skins as blasts of late night shootouts, the taste of a woman's wet neck in a dark alley, and the explosion of liquor bottles against a cinder block wall free us from the normal world while chaining us to the warped cement walks of our diminished existence. I run with you inside of me, entering layers of darkness into the swaddling of night with exhilarating thoughts in the velocity of the city's demands, constantly moving, but inside standing still, searching for words to cut through the dribble, the screams around our ears, the pain of neglect and addiction, running with your voice in my throat, you calling out my name, searching for Father while I search for mine on your earth of many souls, craving the moon, the lunacy and warmth of these rocks covered in mud. I dreamt I had a son. His name was Ramiro, a beautiful boy. Who loved his father. He laughed and played and smiled. I turned to such a great boy. I woke up and the nightmare of the reality told me I need to be there with him. The all our life, idealized, symbolized, even kids who've never truly lived are killers. It's in the rhymes, in the bass, in the rhythms from inside bouncing cars or yawning window panes. Tattoos on faces, they're saying, you can't change this, you can't change me. Permanent pathology. But that's only the body. Inside somewhere, there's a different song. Who will listen to that song? Who will know these cries because they've languished here too? The truth is, we're all broken. What regrets and longings must we bear? What clutch of interference forces our hand? What frenzy knocks on our door? And then when we open it, darkness is swept in. Do we need more laws but less humanity? More punishment and less redemption? High expectations but low patience? It's time to understand, go open-eyed into ourselves, into our deepest fears among our underground youth, into the futureless future, and then rise up. The time for sleeping is over. The falling is so forceful, a gravity of soul to the bottom. The motion downward takes in reams of unwritten poems, paintings with no canvases, notes without melodies. As a young man, I wanted somebody to stop me from crumbling into the death surrounding me, the death that gives life. I didn't seem to be able to. Sometimes prison works this way. Most of the time, it keeps you falling further, deeper. The key to life is to have the words, the images, and the songs as the great barriers to all the great falls. Collapse into yourself, son. Fold into the pages of your journals, into the chords in your head, into what your heart sees. Every other choice has death in it, so choosing life seems empowering. Art is about creativity, new breath, new birth. The only empowering course that echoes, that ripples, that takes on new shapes as it goes outward, not down, but lateral to the rest of us. It took me a lifetime, but I finally learned to fall sideways. Thank you all very much.
All right, that's the man of the event, the 30-year anniversary. Sharing the family. Thank you, Louise. We love you. And there is a poem here that the Infinite Poets wrote for you. They wanted me to share it with you. Infinite Poets, raise your hand. You penned this paper for Louise. It's called Lighthouse. So many brown boys without a voice, without an identity, growing up in violent neighborhoods, gang life, crime life, terribly misunderstood, mangled hearts, unloved and alone, always running, just like you. Luis Rodriguez, thank you for your courage, giving a voice to the voiceless. You showed these boys how to heal so they can stop running. Through your words and your vision, they believed they could rise, just like Ramiro. He learned from the past. Though they may try to silence you with book bans, your word legacy lives on. You are a living legend across the world, creating change wherever your books are read. Your words inspire revolution in us all. Infinite poet. Righteous. Oh, yeah, thanks for that poem. That's so righteous. All right, we're gonna kick off our poesía. Well, Louis just kicked it off. But we're gonna bring up our first poet from LA Poet Society Network, and that is Chino Contreras. And all the bios of all the readers, I think I'm gonna skip the bios just for time's sake, but they're all on our Instagram. If you follow LA Poet Society, or on our website, lapoetsociety.org, and you can find out more about all the people that you're meeting today. So Chino Contreras, you ready?
You see, don't try to romanticize the lies inside the minds of those in higher power. Some say the power structure is built like a pyramid, but better yet, I say it's built like a tower. A 21st century corporate corrupt system from the top to the very bottom. For example, Twin Towers, collapsing within themselves while killing innocent civilians and avoiding the corporate sinisters. That's what it's about. Justice is served hot on a cold platter. While we remain ignorant and blind, and they wash it down with our blood as their water. Okay, that's my little let me get this on. So, my name is Chino. I want to give another round of applause for Luis. Please give it up for Luis. So first time I met Luis was in 2014. He showed up to one of our first Mecha meetings at CSUN, and meeting the man behind Always Running. That's when I got his book and everything, right? It hits you because it's like your homies or older homies that are actually out of prison, that they read the book while they were in juvenile in camp or in prison. They talk to you about it. Like, oh, I didn't go to prison. I met the author. I'm able to meet him in person, right? So we started. I was really focused in art back then, and I have a picture. It was February 2nd, 2014. Ever since then, I've been able to open. The first time he heard my poetry, I was able to open for him when we honored him at CSUN as well. And I was nervous. I had sweaty palms. I was like stumbling over my words. It was also a big auditorium. And I'm like, damn, my poetry sucked, right? But since 2014, when I first got his book, I haven't read it, right? And I'm gonna tell you the honest truth. Why? It's intimidating. Reading through a book or skimming through a book that tells your friend's stories, that tells your story, that tells the pain, right, that our communities go through. I just read his poems and I cried. I don't need to read a whole life story. Like, I don't need it. It's gonna hurt. It's gonna hurt. In my 21st birthday, I went through a trauma experience where I was set up by my friends. Luckily, I'm still here. And I needed time to recuperate, right? I needed time to heal. Now I'm a mental health counselor, substance use disorder counselor, right? I was able to somewhat reach my goal. But being able to read the poems that he's written, being able to see the community that he's built. Tia Chuchas has been the only place that I felt comfortable enough to go and share my poetry and go back home. Come from home, go to Tia Chuchas, show love, support, share my poetry, right? So it's only right that I guess I share a piece of that poetry, and I want to share a piece when I just couldn't write poetry anymore. I went to one of his books and I read like 2-3 pages, and it inspired me to go back and write. And I didn't write poetry, I wrote more like a short story. So this is that short story. I had seen someone leave the world behind before, but at a young age, I saw my first close friend in a box, laying face up, pale skin, unrecognizable, looking older than he was, cold hands holding a rosario. With pictures of his friends, I cried that night. He went to the hospital and his sister called my sister to let us know he didn't make it. I didn't know how to react when I saw him. I want to say I cried, but I can't really remember. Ever since then, I can't remember if I cried again or when I did for him. I know I have, I just don't know when. That's what definition of trauma happens. But I guess I never stopped crying ever since then. Death is funny that way. It touches you once and never leaves you again. And this is a quick one, just to have what I do. And I want to thank Luis because we met a couple times afterwards, and he asked me to bring my poetry to him. I brought 2 backpacks full of just books, and I put them all on the table. And he said, "You're a poet already. You don't need me to tell you." And I've held that ever since, right? And I'm still scared to continue writing. I'm still scared to bring that forward, right? But here's another poem, and I'm gonna end it off with this. Y quiero escribirle poemas en español para que sienta mi primer lengua como el sol que ilumine su ser para ser encontrada mejor por mi perdido corazón, buscando un hogar donde descansar, donde comer, beber, hablar, lugar donde puede irse lejos en un viaje, pero siempre tener a donde regresar. donde pueda sonreír, aprender, llorar sin duda, sin juzga, con manos abiertas noche y día, donde hay amor, como en los cuentos que le contaban cuando era niña, para que me enseñe cómo amar, para poder escribir poemas de verdad, poemas sin pensar, poemas sin duda, poemas dedicados solo a ella, poemas solo dichos por memoria, porque el sentir se volvió el poema, dicho por la lengua olvidada. Ella es mi poema con su ser, su sonrisa, un poema nunca escrito bajo la luna, un poema que hasta este día no ha bailado sobre mi lengua, esperando que ella me enseñe a escribirla como poema. Thank you.
All right, thank you for sharing your testimony también. I think that's also important. You know, feel free to share your connection with the libro, and then you can get into your poems. All right, next we're gonna have John Martinez. Let's hear for John.
Thank you, Luis, for being Luis J. Rodriguez. I kind of conned my way to be second, told her that my phone was dying, I need to be up here. So, you know, it is what it is. Family, to me, is everything. Wife's here, my son's here, girlfriend's here. I grew up with a powerful family, 12 in the projects, and we did field work. So the poems that I chose today are family poems. And the first one is to my great-grandmother, Mama Nacha. It's called Mama Nacha. Abuela Raquel, with her perm-burned hair, her waddling under crunched slippers, took me to her mother, who was dark in her sockets, ready to see God. The room was gray, wheat curtains letting in one dusty ray of light. Mama Nacha was dying in the beginning of my life. My hair bunched, pinned up like a little teepee on my steel hardened skull, level with the edge of the bed. I reached to touch the branch of her lips, and one eye, a hawk's eye, opened and took me flying, piercing the cold suds of pumped clouds and bleached blue sky like a musical flurry of notes, took me to where I am now, curled in her love until I see her again. I only saw her once. That was it. I worked in the fields. This is to my mother. My mother walked potato and egg burritos wrapped in aluminum foil, walked solid ice in Clorox bottles, walked a roll-up blanket down a long row of grapes, placing them on top of the vine at the end of the row. Then she walked back. At 6 a.m., the stars were closing their eyes and the sun sharpening its teeth, the moon taking a last look at our little feet pulled under this vine. But the day will turn the earth to lava again. The sun will lick its hot tongue across our cheeks. And as we knife ourselves closer and closer, the ice in the Clorox bottles will turn to cold water. The burritos will bake tender in the sun. When we get to the end of the row, she'll spread the blanket, over the dirt, put her brown hands together and pray. Then for third one, last, I do an intro. Oh. I'm a Chicano. And I haven't adopted any new words for Chicano, but I'm old school. Maybe one day I'll be Chicano X. I don't know. But I'm Chicano right now. And so somebody said, if you show up, read a Chicano poem. None of that soft stuff. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I wrote a Chicano poem, and this is it. I still take my Chicano self seriously. With the promise of 2 tacos de chorizo pressed in foil paper, I took my Chicano finger and wrote my name in the hot sand. I took my Chicano eyes and beamed them to the sad clouds, the sizzling sky, with the promise that the road will end, that the day will wind down to a cool, dark blue wind, that the moon is certain